the Master of Ceremonies. I want to begin with a scripture passage, which is the scripture of today, Luke chapter 9, verses 1 to 6. Jesus summoned the 12 and gave them power and authority over all demons and to cure diseases. And he sent them to proclaim the kingdom of God and to heal the sick. He said to them, "Take nothing for the journey, neither walking stick, nor sack, nor food, nor money. And let no one take a second tunic. Whatever house you enter, stay there and leave from there. And for those who do not welcome you, when you leave that town, shake the dust from your feet in testimony against them." Then they set out and went from village to village, proclaiming the good news and curing diseases everywhere. Let us pray. Father God, we thank you that you've sent your messengers out to preach and to heal, and invite us, the present-day messengers, to do the same, to preach and to heal. And so, Father, we ask a blessing on this gathering tonight and all those who are following us on social media, that would understand our responsibility to preach your word, to speak the name of Jesus, and to cure each other. In the words of Charity Gale, this evening I want to speak the name of Jesus over every heart and every mind, because I know there is peace within your presence. I speak Jesus. I speak the name of Jesus till every dark addiction starts to break, declaring there is hope and there is freedom. I speak Jesus. Because your name is power, your name is healing, your name is life. Break every stronghold, shine through the shadows, burn like a fire. I want to speak the name of Jesus tonight over fear and all anxiety. To every soul held captive by depression, I speak Jesus. So Lord Jesus, be with us. We feel sometimes that we're surrounded by darkness, but you are the light. Shine in us and through us, that others who might be depressed, others who might be anxious, can be relieved of all their sickness. We thank you, Lord. We praise and glorify you. Your Lord and God forever and ever. Amen. Amen. Father and Son.
Okay, thank you very much, Monsignor John Wiss. And at this point, we would just like to observe a brief moment of silence, particularly for all our men who died in recent time as a result of cancer. So let us just pause for a moment of silence as we remember some of these men. And may the souls and the soul of all the faithful departed through the mercy of God rest in peace. Amen. Okay, as we continue, let me just recognize in our presence the Honorable Kent Edwards, the Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Social Security. He is here sitting for the Honorable Minister, who would have liked to be here, but due to other engagements, is not able to be with us this evening. I also recognize our panelists. We have Val Coffey, who is pharmacist, businessman, and himself a survivor, cancer survivor. We also recognize Lester Guy, psychologist, who is also coordinator of the HIV/AIDS program, and you will be hearing a little bit more about him from the moderator this evening. Our moderator, Carlton Lando, a community pharmacist, head of sales and public relations at Jolly's Pharmacy. He will lead the discussion this evening. I also recognize in our presence one who has strong roots in Dominica, a visiting urologist, men's health specialist. He's based in Antigua currently. Adrian Rod, Dr. Adrian Rod, he's in Dominica for a short visit, and while here he will be conducting clinics at the Premier Medical located on Federation Drive, Goodwill. So we want to welcome you, Dr. Rod, and we hope that you will continue to offer your services in Dominica. I also want to recognize members of the press. We have DNO, we have Kyrie, and other media houses present here this evening, as well as our audience, those of you in the audience who have come to inform yourself about men's health, prostate cancer, and how we can be more healthy as men in the Dominican society. Today, the focus of this evening, the focus is on prostate health. As you know, this month, the Dominica Cancer Society is observing Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, and the theme that we have chosen for this month is prostate cancer. It is time to act. Many of us, we have a lot of information, we have a lot of knowledge, but what do we do with that information? It's not just sufficient to know. This is a call to act on what we know so that we can live healthier lives. Tonight, we are going to focus on men, our health, and our life. But there will be a bit of a focus on prostate health, as I said. The representative of the Ministry of Health is here, Honorable Kent Edwards, and at this point, I would like to invite him to bring some greetings from the Honorable Minister, so I invite him now to the microphone.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mr. Moderator, distinguished guests, esteemed panelists, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great honor to be here this evening as we gather to discuss a matter of profound importance, men's health and wellness. The theme of this panel, Men, Our Health, Our Lives, speaks directly to an urgent need in our communities to understand, prioritize, and take action on the unique health challenges faced by men in our society. In Dominica, like many other parts of the world, men are less likely to engage in healthcare services, less likely to seek help when needed, and more likely to suffer from conditions such as heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, prostate cancer, and mental health issues. The consequences of neglecting our health are not just personal. They affect our families, our communities, our nation's productivity and prosperity. This evening's discussion is an opportunity for us to reflect on why this is the case, and more importantly, what we can do to change this narrative. We will explore the cultural, social, and economic factors that influence men's health-seeking behaviors and look at ways we can encourage healthier lifestyle greater self-awareness, and timely medical intervention. As men, we often carry the burdens of being providers and protectors, but we must also understand that we cannot fulfill these roles if we are not in good health. This requires a shift in thinking away from the idea that seeking help, taking care of others, is a sign of weakness of ourselves, towards the recognition that it is in fact an act of strength. Our ministry is committed to ensuring that all Dominicans, including our men, have access to necessary healthcare services and support to live long, healthy, and fulfilling lives. Through ongoing programs, the Ministry of Wellness is seeking community outreach as we are working to improve on the stigma surrounding men's health and encourage early detection and prevention. Over the past decade, prostate cancer has consistently ranked among Dominica's top 10 leading causes of death. In 2024, it remains a serious public health concern and a leading cause of death among men in the Commonwealth of Dominica. However, we have made some significant progress in the fight against this disease. In 2022, prostate cancer claimed the lives of 32 men in Dominica. In 2023, the number decreased to 26, making it a decline of approximately 19%. This reduction, though a step in the right direction, reminds us that the work is far from over, and we must remain vigilant in our efforts to save more lives. One of the key factors contributing to the improvement in this increase in prostate cancers island-wide is the screening taken by the Ministry of Health. The Ministry of Health, Wellness and Social Services has placed a high priority on early detection and public education, which has a crucial role in identifying cases earlier and improving patient outcomes. As a result, we have seen a rise in the number of prostate cancer screenings, with more men heeding the call to protect their lives and health through regular checkups. Additionally, I can announce that the number of men's clinics across the island has increased, offering greater access and health support. When it comes to prostate cancer screening, there are several modalities available, each with its own benefits. The two most commonly used methods are prostate-specific antigen, PSA, blood test, and the digital rectal exam, DRE. Both are important, but the PSA test is often considered the more effective in identifying early-stage prostate cancer, as it measures the level of PSA in the blood, which can be elevated in men with prostate cancer. However, a combination of PSA testing, DRE, and ultrasonogram of prostate remains the most comprehensive approach to screening, as it allows for better detection of the abnormal growths or tumors. While we celebrate the progress made, we must continue to encourage men, especially those over the age of 40, to seek screening and prioritize their health. Early detection can make all difference in reducing mortality and improving the quality of life. As we move forward, the ministry is committed to expanding access to screening, education, treatment, and ensuring that no man is left behind in our national response to prostate cancer. Our ministry is committed to ensuring that all Dominicans, including our men, have access to the necessary health services and support to live long, healthy, and fulfilling lives. Through ongoing programs in wellness and education, screening, and community outreach, we are working to remove the stigma surrounding men's health and encourage early detection, prevention of not only prostate cancer, but all non-communicable diseases. But the government can't do it alone. We need strong partnerships between healthcare providers, community organizations, families, most importantly, men themselves. We must all work together to create an environment where men feel empowered to take charge of their health, where seeking help is normalized, and where barriers to access care are removed. This panel discussion, therefore, is a critical step in that direction. I look forward to hearing our expert panelists and just as importantly from all of you in the audience this evening, as we share ideas, ask questions, strategize on how we can better support men's health in Dominica. Together we can change the narrative. Together we can ensure that all men live longer lives, healthier and fulfilling lives. Thank you, and I wish you all a fruitful and engaging discussion.
Thank you very much, Honorable Edwards, for those very inspiring words and reminding us as men that seeking help when we need help is certainly a strength. And also reminding us of some of the focus that your ministry is placing on men's health in the area of public education, early detection, and trying to improve on our figures, men who are coming forward for screening in our various health clinics. So thank you very much, and the Dominica Cancer Society continues to look forward to collaborating with the Ministry of Health in improving the health of our men and by extension, the health of our nation. So thanks again very much. I forgot to recognize my friend and my padre, Monsignor John List, in my earlier introductions. Welcome, Monsignor, and thanks again for leading us in prayer. At this point, I'm going to invite the panelists to join us at the head table. We're still missing Dr. Jacob, but we will begin, and he will join us as he comes. So the panelists, can you please come forward? Passing over to our distinguished panel, I would just like to introduce the moderator for the evening. And our moderator is Carlton Lando, very well-known pharmacist, talk show host in Dominica. He is head of sales, public health, and public relations at Jolly's Pharmacy Limited. Carlton is a graduate of the University of the West Indies with an executive diploma in community health, a certificate in advanced supervisory management, and a diploma in public relations. He is currently pursuing a master's in business administration, specializing in coaching, mentoring, and leadership at York St. John University in England. Carlton has won many top regional awards, and I will not try to list them for you here this evening, but I guess many of you may know some of these. And these awards are for his contribution to health education and promotion and pharmacy practice. As you know, today he joins all the pharmacists in observing World Pharmacy Day. Yes. We have heard it in the news this morning talking about that. In Dominica, he holds the position of Vice President of the Dominica Diabetes Association, which is an extension of his community service. As I said, he is the host of two popular health talk shows aired weekly on DBS and Q95 Radio, Health Pulse and Health Vibes, and he is the editor of Jolly's Pharmacy internal health newsletter, Health in Focus. Carlton Lando is a husband, a proud one, and a father of 3 children. So I pass over to Carlton Lando to continue the night proceedings. Let's welcome him.
Thank you, Mr. Lita. Good evening to everybody. It is a pleasure to be here this evening. As you know, men's health is everybody's business. As we would normally say, tourism is everybody's business. We are still in the point this evening, and we're saying that men's health is everybody's business. And so this evening, we are going to be focusing on men's health, but more specifically on prostate health, as it is prostate awareness health, prostate awareness month here in Dominica and the world by extension. You would have heard the statistics earlier on in terms of the mortality rate, in terms of men who have succumbed to prostate cancer, and the many men who have been diagnosed, and sometimes have been diagnosed to be too late. And so this evening we are going to really encourage our men to listen. Those of you who are joining us virtually, as we are live on Kyrie FM, on Dominica News Online, on Loftus Durham, yes, Loftus Durham live as well. So we are international this evening, and so we want you to take some time and listen. Wives, call your husband, call your boyfriend, call your brother. Let them know that a very, very important discussion is happening this evening. One that may actually help someone and help someone to make a better choice. This evening we do have a very informed panel. Dr. Jacobs is running a little late. I just spoke to him. He should be maybe close to us anytime from now, so he will join us soon. But let me just introduce our two panelists that are here at the moment. Mr. Lester Guy, who is a friend of mine and my very own therapist, and I encourage that every one of us, we need a little therapy at times. So Lester Guy is a health psychologist and is currently coordinator of the HIV/AIDS response unit of the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Social Services. He holds a Master's of Science in Health Psychology and is the founder of GL Psychos Support Services. Lester Guy, let's make it welcome this evening. We have another very good friend of mine. He was the best MC at my wedding, and he never sent me a bill, so it's something I really truly appreciate. Mr. Valentine Coffey, and we normally call him Val, and Valentine Coffey served in both the public and private sector as a pharmacist. He has served as the third and first Vice President of the Caribbean Association of Pharmacists. He is co-founder and CEO of Bullseye Pharmacy, Inc. Valentine served as Executive Director of the Dominica Festivals Committee. He's a former Senior Cultural Officer. He also served as Chairman of the Carnival Development Committee and a former President of the Dominica Amateur Football Association. He has worked, association. He has worked in media, has been Road March King in Dominica on several occasions. Many of us remember Through My Pocket, you know, and the list goes on. He has been a DJ, master of ceremonies at numerous events. He is currently in his final stages of studies to becoming a deacon in the Catholic Church. So let's make Mr. Welcome. And we have our third panelist, Dr. Ken Jacobs. He is on his way. Dr. Ken Jacobs is a urologist by profession, and he's from the community of Granby. He first entered the medical sector in the year 2003 and has arrived as a nursing student. He excelled in his first year of nursing and as a result decided to further his studies in medicine in 2005. He worked as a medical officer in Dominica from 2013 to 2015, then got the opportunity to specialize in the field of urology in Santiago de Cuba, in Cuba. From 2020 to 2022, he worked alongside two Chinese urologists at the Dominica China Friendship Hospital, where he gained even more experience in minimal invasive and endourological techniques. From there, he has been in private practice in his capacity as a urologist and is willing to lend his expertise when called upon. Dr. Jacobs, good evening. So we have a very, very good panel. We are looking at the survivor story, the psychosocial aspect of the diagnosis and the way forward after you have gotten that diagnosis, and the treatment options that are available, what you need to know, what the facts are as it relates to prostate cancer, prostate health. So this morning, this evening, I had such a long day, I'm still in the morning period, but this evening, what we will begin with Dr. Jacobs, who is going to give us an overview in terms of what is the prostate, what are its functions, what are the signs and symptoms that you would need to look for, and so forth. And so we will ask Dr. Jacobs to actually come and make his presentation to us. The mic I think can move, so if you want to sit or if you want to stand. You can sit. Yeah. So,
hello, good evening. Good evening. I'm Dr. Ken Jacob, urologist. I can speak to you this evening about prostate health. Okay. Before we speak about prostate health, we have to know what exactly is the prostate. Prostate is basically a small organ underneath the bladder. For the only males have prostate. Women do not have prostate. Okay, so it is behind the pelvic bone. So that bone you feel just below your belly button, just above the penis, and heart bone. It's an organ below there at the back of that bone. It's a walnut-shaped organ. If you do not know what's a walnut, we can describe it as a small green line about 30 millimeters or 30 cc's. Okay? Now, the prostate, the function of the prostate is to help nourish the sperm, which form part of the semen. So it produces the liquid that forms part of the semen. The prostate produces fructose and other substances that help nourish and protect the sperm so they can swim along the fallopian tube to fertilize the egg in the female. Okay? So now when the man hits the age of 45 to 50 years old, we have some hormonal changes that take place. Okay? So with these hormonal changes, we have the proliferation of the prostate gland, meaning it grows larger than the normal size, and then therefore it kind of gives symptoms, urinary symptoms in the male. Okay? With prostate health, we have to talk about two entities. We have to talk about the inflammation, or BPH, and we have to talk about prostate cancer. They are two different entities. Okay. For a male individual who has a very strong family history of prostate issues, for example, his father, his uncle, his brother, and some male cousins, very close cousins, they have a strong family history. You start testing for prostate health maybe at age 45 years old. But for other men who do not have any strong family history, you can start testing for prostate at the age of 50 years old. And the old literature talks about 50 years old, and the newer literature, the more recent ones, speak about 45. Okay, some other literature even talk about from 40 years old. Alright, but the hormonal changes generally take place at the age of 50 years old. Now, what hormonal changes am I talking about? With women, you have menopause or men on pause. With men, you have andropause. which is the drop in the production of testosterone. Testosterone is the male hormone, the hormone that gives you your muscles, you know, the Adam's apple, the beard, the deep voice, the growing of your penis, and the sexual maturity, the production of sperm. Okay? It's a natural process. When you hit the age of 50, everything drops. It's downward slope. You know, once a man, twice a child, you're getting older. So naturally, the sperm production and testosterone production drops. Okay? It's a natural process. Now, that causes different changes in the body. Scientists do not know why, but they have studied what happens at the age of 50 in a male person. Okay? The most accepted theory is that because the testosterone drops, the brain sends a message to the fat cells and also the endocrine glands to produce synthetic, or it's a testosterone type of testosterone, but it's not the type that the testicle produces, or it's a type that it adds some other thing to it, some other chemical to it, that when the prostate absorbs that type of testosterone, it gets, it enlarges, it grows abnormally. That we call BPH, which is benign prostatic hyperplasia, which all men have at the age of 50. Some have it a little more than others, okay? But then for the normal process, all men have it. Now, if it gets to a point that the passage of the urine is blocked, then we have to pass a catheter to allow the passage of urine. There are procedures that can be done where, for example, you have the tip procedure where you have a scraping of the prostate, right? And then you can open up the passage of the urethra so the patient can urinate again. There is laser, there are all different types of procedures. Okay? There's resume, you can use the steam, you use water jet energy to open up the urethra so the patient can urinate again. Different procedures. Now, the other entity we have to speak about is prostate cancer. Prostate cancer generally affects the African descent more than the Caucasian, than the Asian, people of Asian descent. The statistics show that the Asian descent have less prostate cancer. We're talking about Chinese, Japanese, Asian people. We can sometimes people say yellow people. You have yellow people, you have black, you have white. Okay? They don't know why, it's just genetics. Now, so risk factors for prostate cancer. You have to be male, one, you have to be a man, you cannot be female on prostate cancer. Okay, you have to be 45 and over. Prostate cancer does not affect men below 45 years. There's no statistic that shows that. Okay? Sexual activity plays a part. There's a specific virus called the human papilloma virus that I think is the type 16 and 18. I think Jolly's Pharmacy recently, Jolly's Pharmacy, no, I think it was a lab who has the vaccine. They were advertising it recently. They have a vaccine now for the HPV, but I think it's the type 16 and 18 that really produces cancer. There are many types, but the scientists are isolating 16 and 18, which produces prostate cancer. So you have generally the promiscuous quote-unquote man, macho, plenty woman, you know how it goes, and then the woman will transmit that virus to him. Now, the virus will not do any harm to him in an instant. It takes years. So what it does, it lodges into the prostate. It produces chronic prostatitis, which is inflammation of the prostate, and then over the years, it turns into prostate cancer. Okay? So you have age, you have being of African descent, you have the human papillomavirus, then you have genetics. If your grandfather had it, your father had it, then it's likelihood that you might have it. Okay? Let's go symptoms. The symptoms in prostate cancer generally are nil when it's in early stage. So you might have it and I don't feel anything. most men, when they go to their general, their physical, every year, they do a PSA test, which is a blood test, and then the PSA test is high. That's how they study it further, and that's how they find out that it's prostate cancer. Okay? So symptoms generally start later on when the cancer has already proliferated. You can have bleeding, blood in your urine. You might see often you get a lot of blood in your urine. You might have some hesitancy. You go to the toilet, you go to urinate, and you take a little time before it comes out. You might have pain on urination. You might find every time you urinate, it burns or it hurts a bit. It can be before you start or after you finish urinate. Okay? Sometimes some people get lower back pain, or waist pain, or hip pain, or pain in your leg. That is very intense, and it doesn't the pain doesn't decrease with analgesics, for example, paracetamol, ibuprofen. The pain is a constant, intense pain that doesn't make you want to walk. Sometimes it makes you bedridden. So when you have the symptoms or you have a high PSA, the PSA basically is a blood test which you do to detect any activity in the prostate. So the doctor will make you do maybe 3 or 4 blood tests or PSAs. Okay, that is the gold standard, the main test that is very specific to the prostate. So there is a contradiction with the older doctors and the newer doctors that you have to do the finger first, because the finger, if you don't do the finger, or you do not you're not examining properly. That yes and no. Okay, at the level of the health center, which is your primary health care, where you have the general doctor, you do a general exam, right? So the finger or the DRE or the rectal exam forms part of the general exam, because you have to check your eyes, your throat, your nose, your chest, also take your lungs, and also your DRE. But at this level of the specialist will read what the general doctor writes and make his own decision. It is called. So generally we send PSA, which is a blood test, and an ultrasound of the prostate. Now with those two, you can get all the information you need. Okay? Generally we do 2 or 3 PSAs, and we have all the information we need. Okay? So if the PSA is high meaning more than 4 nanograms per milliliter. 4 times 10 to the minus 9 is how small that molecule is that can be detected in the blood. Okay? So if you have 3 or 4 high PSAs, then you qualify to do a prostate biopsy. Okay? Now the prostate biopsy is nothing more than taking a piece of prostate with a very thin needle and then sending it to the lab to be analyzed. Okay? So when that is analyzed, the lab sends a report where it says, we detect an adenocarcinoma, which has infiltration or does not infiltration, and then that's a positive diagnosis for prostate cancer. Okay? Treatment options. Treatment options for prostate cancer is different from BPH, which is inflammation. So those 2 entities, we have BPH, we have prostate cancer, which are 2 different entities, but they are very common in the Dominican population. The BPH is just the inflammation, we want to specify. And the prostate cancer is cancer. They are separate. So with the BPH, the most thing you can do is maybe put in a catheter to facilitate the flow of urine. Whereby prostate cancer, you have to nip it in the bud, burn it or remove it before it spreads. Okay, so now with treatment options in prostate cancer, when you diagnose positive by the biopsy, is basically using medication to bring down the testosterone, because the cancer kind of feeds on the testosterone. So you have medication, tablets or injection to bring down the testosterone. That will buy you some time when you can go and maybe do radiation treatment, which we call brachytherapy, or you can do HIFU treatment, which is basically sound energy that will burn the cancer. That is, in a nutshell, the 2 entities that I see the most in the Dominican population. Questions?
I'll take questions. Thank you, Dr. Jacobs, for a synopsis on prostate cancer from a physiological standpoint, including that of treatment as well. What we're going to do, because we have limited time, we're going to pass on the mic to Lester Guy, who's going to walk us through in terms of the psychosocial support that is available, what you need to know. You may have gotten a diagnosis and it's very difficult, or you may not even have a diagnosis, but you are home, you have the symptoms that the doctor has highlighted, and you are nervous of seeking intervention of a doctor and doing the regular or the required laboratory tests to confirm, and you're wondering what will happen, what do I do? So how do you deal with that phobia of first knowing? A lot of people have this notion that if I don't know, then it's not going to hurt me. And they live in that cell, that almost I would call a false sense of security, which is often very selfish. So Lester Guy, you're going to talk a little about that with us.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks again for having me in this much needed discussion. In fact, let me start from a personal point of view. I've had in the family recently with cancer, which is not prostate cancer. So I know it can impact someone having someone within your family circle who may have presented with cancer, and how much it plays on your mind. But let me just step back just a little. I remember some years ago, I did a presentation at one of the health district, and I was talking to them about prostate and prostate cancer. And after we were through I was through the presentation, and one of the men called me inside and said, "Mr. Guy, boy, so happy you come and talk about that. But guess what? I have a little anecdotal story for you." I remember the first time I had to do the digital rectal examination. So I've been seeing my doctor, he was doing his examinations and so on, and then eventually my prostate, my pH was a little high. Yes, it was high. So the doctor said to him that you have to do a digital rectal examination. And he said, someone was always telling me something, I don't want to have to do that, and I don't have to do that. The day that he did it, when he was through, he said to the doctor, I felt like I'd been a confession. So much a sense of relief when the doctor told him, when I checked, and it's not as large as we think, it's not as rough, the texture is good. And he felt like he'd been a confession, and I laughed. I'm like, this is what I wanted to hear. And I told him one of my disappointment was the fact that we didn't say that when the other men did. And as a health psychologist, as a psychologist, as a healthcare provider, because of the socio-cultural beliefs that we experience in a Caribbean setting, it's only when men, common men, speak with common men, you get the message passed over. And I keep encouraging people to have that conversation with your friends. Have that conversation with the guys that you spend on the bottom table. Have the conversation with the men who's on the football team. And just so on Sunday, I was doing some home chores and this gentleman came over and he spent almost 3 hours with me because he had been diagnosed with prostate cancer and had to go to Guyana for treatment. So when we really look at it from that perspective, when we look at it from a psychological and emotional perspective, it's something that every individual is going to deal with differently. And the gentleman gave me his whole story of what happened to him and so on, and how his family reacted to it and how he reacted to it. And for me, it was like really like a breath of fresh air, having someone that you're not related to so much, but felt so open, talking about it. These are the testimonials that we need. And I think these are the testimonials that are going to be very effective with the Caribbean men that we interact with. Because one of the weaknesses that we have is that Caribbean men generally, but more so Caribbean men, feels that when I feel something and I can stand it and I can hold on to it, it's because I'm strong. Actually, it's a weakness. And until we start teaching that to our men, when they feel some of the symptoms that Dr. Jacob has mentioned, instead of saying, okay, let me take a little bullshit, let me try and see if I'll last a little longer when I'm having sex. Let me see if the PP will really come comfortable. Let me drink more water, let me drink coconut water. These are the things that sometimes we miss, and by the time we get to it, you have to start seeking the help of a person like myself. I tell clients I like helping people, but when it comes to promotion and prevention, for me, I am advocating for that more than anything else. And for me, the way that we can live in the board, Dr. Jacob, is by promotion of good health and prevention. Because when clients come to you, and you're already at that stage where you're probably diagnosed already, it takes more work from me. I love my work, but I love people more. And for me, when you come to me and you're experiencing that, in fact, again, because I work in health and so many persons come and have a discussion. Today I found out that a colleague of mine also may have been diagnosed with some type of cancer. And a close friend of mine is saying to me, it was not a really rough day. Because it took a little time before that person was diagnosed. And this is what I don't like to hear. Because it means that when you come to me right now, you're already dealing with the grieving, you're dealing with how to deal with the loss, you're thinking of how your family is going to be sustained, you're thinking of what chemotherapy is going to be like, you're thinking of how my finances are going to be, because it's expensive. So all of those other things are going to pile up with just one thing that if you're taking an opportunity to approach earlier, Carlton, would be a lot better for you. Because the fear that people have sometimes, men especially, when we have cancer, we're diagnosed with cancer, is not only about the biological or the clinical aspect of it, it's how it's going to change my entire life, how it's going to change the quality of my life, and how it's going to change the quality of the life of my family and my close friends. And most times when people do come to me, if they do come to me, that's what I have to focus on more than anything else. Because the idea of the clinical cure, you have to take it. You have to just decide, you know what, this is it for me to get better. I must take chemotherapy, I must do some of those procedures that you're talking about. But at the end of the day, how do I cope with it? And this is what I find myself having to work with. And if every individual is different, I cannot give you a blueprint for what works for everybody. I can give you genetic stuff in terms of generic stuff, so in terms of what do I do, because when somebody presents with being diagnosed with an illness, I can walk into the steps of where do you get the support, how do you make environmental changes, how do you make the personal changes, how do you make the nutritional changes, how do you do the emotional challenges and the psychological challenges and the mental challenges that you have. But it means that the way that you respond to it, you have to decide what type of interventions I have to make with you. One of the things I love is that when people do come and they have good family support, or support for that, it makes it a lot easier. But once you're diagnosed with an illness, even prostate cancer, you are going to experience a level of grieving. You will experience a level of grieving. And that's what I have to focus on. Because I cannot pep talk you, it's not a mentorship. I cannot pep talk you. I can encourage you. I can guide you in terms of getting a nutritionist, probably getting the correct doctor or medical professional that you need, but I just have to deal with what you present with. So you have people who come and they don't sleep. How do I deal with that? What do I give you in terms of, from a psychological point of view? How do I tell you, okay, I can give you the assurance that if and when something happens to you, that your family is going to be right. I'm not in the power to do that, but what I can give you is good coping mechanisms. And that's what I try to do most times, most of my clients. So as I said, I may be able to be in this discussion, but I'm not going to give you a blueprint for it. It's what I feel though, a lot of people, because they do so much, I think psychological help and psychological support is really good, because it helps you to cope a lot better. I help you develop the coping mechanisms. But at the end of the day, it's when the person comes to me in conversation. Because I've seen fighters, I've seen persons with cancer who are really good fighters, and they're always positive. I had a very close family member. It wasn't prostate cancer, but it was cancer. And that person was a fighter. But there also comes a point when the person recognizes that, yo, it's hopeless. And all I need to do is wait, make things right with whoever my belief is, and prepare for it. And also, how do I support the family members, because the family members are also needed. So it's not just an individualized thing. Again, I see help from multifaceted. You know, the model of health we should be taking right now should not be just the client and the medical professional. It should be where all of this support comes from. Cancer Society, the faith-based organizations, what role do they play in your life? Because I tell people when they come to therapy with me, you could be Muslim, you could be Christian, you could be Catholic. What works for you? And I will have to delve or deep into or identify where your strength comes from that makes you feel comfortable. And that reminds me that, you know, it's not always an individual thing. So I look at it from that perspective, and I encourage men. I do want to encourage, before psychological help, do promotion and maintenance of good health. But if and when you come to me, I will deal with you from an individual, from a subjective point of view, and see how I can get you to where you want to get. That's what I'm going to do.
I want to ask you quickly, Andrew, on this. There are people who have gotten a diagnosis of cancer, and they feel, well, the best thing for me to do is to keep that diagnosis to myself and don't tell anyone about it. And family members would recognize the physiological changes, the weight loss, the malaise, and all of that. And the person will still be in denial. I'm okay, or I'm just not feeling well. What do you say to someone who would have made a decision like that? That, you know, I have this diagnosis, I prefer not tell my wife, I prefer not tell my mother, my sister, because I don't want to worry them. Is that a good decision?
So again, we have to step back again and look at it from a subjective point of view. And I'll tell you why. I have been working with the HIV and AIDS response program for 11 years right now. And there are persons who have been diagnosed with HIV, and they're still denying that they're HIV positive. Wow. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? You've done the blood test for them, it's showed up that they're positive. You've done CD4, you've done viral load, and you can see that there is a virus in the system, but mentally they're incapable of accepting it. Now, denial is one of the most basic and primal defense mechanisms that we use, because we don't want to confront what is going on with us. And if you look at it, it's quite an interesting thing, denial. I always laugh at it when I get clients who are denying stuff like that. Yeah? But look at it. Some people, again, as I said, it's not an individual thing in terms of, because I know if I present, I tell my wife, or tell my significant other, I tell my children that I have cancer, they're going to make a fuss over it. It again comes back to the cultural aspect of how we look at life. Because I'm supposed to be the breadwinner, the protector. If you see me as weak, or as not strong, if you want to say that, it means that you yourself is going to be weak. And that happens a lot with our society, where men feel that because I'm supposed to be the stalwart in that family, if I tell them that I am not well, they're going to worry so much that they're going to make a fuss over it. And I don't want them to worry, but guess what? Unfortunately, they will have to worry. Which is the same thing that I say to HIV positive people. Even if you deny, and let's say you decide not to go on antiretroviral therapy, at some point you are going to get sick. So there's no way you're going to avoid it. And it means that if your wife, your family, your children finds out that you're HIV, that you're prostate cancer, or any type of cancer, and they find out late, it means that it's less than they can do. So it puts them even in a more dire situation, and you have not told them earlier, which they already are mentally going to start preparing for what is the next step. Is it that you're at stage 1 or 2 that we can fight it? Is it that you're at stage 3 that we know that we just have to give you as much love and comfort as you go through the process? So that's where the difficulty sometimes is, and I really want to admonish men out there. This is about your life, and this is about making life decisions. Holding on anything as it relates to your health that's going to affect you in the long run more. It's just unfortunate. And guess what, again, I just had another friend, right? I play dominoes a lot, so most people would have passed on. Here's because people see us playing dominoes here. It's a very good friend of us, an artist. Very good friend who was really good in planning and stuff, who recently died. And again, it's just because sometimes if you don't feel well, you need to. I tell my colleagues and I tell my friends that if you're not well, if you don't feel well, if there's something going on, you need to at least have one person where you can pick up the phone and say, this is my situation. Because when death comes sudden, it's even more difficult sometimes for families than if you actually prepare for it. So we have to look at it from that perspective. And I think, again, it's just admonishing men where they are, how they have to respond to circumstances like this when they have those type of diagnosis, and see how best we can help. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Guy, for such thought-provoking information. So we're going to pass on to Mr. Coffey, who is a survivor of prostate cancer. He's going to share his story with us, maybe how he got diagnosed, how he felt receiving that information, what he did. We heard from Lester. I'm sure he could have maybe kept it to himself. Did he keep that diagnosis? Did he keep that diagnosis to himself, or did he, share that information with loved ones, and they would have helped him? So if you're listening, as I said, you really don't want to turn that dialogue on to something else. Look and listen. You might learn something. So let's listen to Mr. Coffey as he tells his story as a survivor.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. It's a very good time to be here to discuss prostate cancer and to share. During our life challenges and opportunities, we have to deal with a multitude of health issues in our lifetime. But what helps us to come out of these challenging times still standing is our faith in God, which is the most principal fact in our lives as believers. Romans 8:20 reminds us that we know that all things work together for good for those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. So when cancer, the prostate, came calling on that fateful day, it was my faith in God that I leaned on so as to strengthen my mind, my body, and my spirit as I had to face that battle with my wife and my family. Never had I imagined this would be possible after all the other health problems that I had to deal with. Cancer of the prostate made me better, a bigger man in understanding who and whose I am, and the importance of your physical and spiritual health as we grow older. Cancer, like all other diseases, is not a punishment, as it can develop in believers and unbelievers. There is hope in your healing and recovery, but you have to make the necessary steps by yearly medical checks on the status of your health, a proper diet, an exercise plan, and of course, serving your God and giving praise. Developing a relationship with your community and your family. I was fortunate to have been checking my PSA yearly. And with my doctor, now the Minister of Finance, we were able to move the plan forward in our discussions when my PSA went out of the roof. So immediately I had to begin moving the pieces around to get to my other doctor in Antigua, Dr. Joseph John, then get a test done in Antigua to be sent to Miami to see at what level that I was at. When that came back, I had to now leave Dominica and go to Barbados to Dr. Jerry Emtaj's office. And there the story unfolded, and then it continued. In having to face this reality, it took everything I had within me to steady myself. You must never second guess the importance of early detection and the value of keeping your physical body in the best way possible. Men, and let's allude to it, we live like these superheroes on television, but we are only human. So never live your lives for yourselves and forget your families. Because if you are to face this disease, your family is the anchor most needed. Do not be afraid, brothers, to open and be truthful of what is changing in your manhood. Men, we have too much pride when it comes to our manhood. We think about manhood as if it's the first grade. But historically,
This is the brain that is always the one, if we leave long enough, that will shut down its business operations first. The NCDs are high in Dominica, but so too is prostate cancer. We need to live a life that considers the management system that will help alleviate the pain and suffering of these conditions and how it affects our families. The proper response is a good first step, not based on I have tomorrow, because tomorrow will never come. Or when it does arrive, it is the news that will make you feel depressed and angry and not heeding to wise advice. Do not believe that there is ever hope in a fool's paradise. Do not build your physical health on sand, but build it on the solid rock of common sense, with knowledge and understanding of the human health conditions that can take you away too soon from this earth. The battle of prostate cancer, or any cancer, is won when we can change our life circumstances by the way we approach the fight to prevent and, if needs be, treating the cancer. Early detection is the redeeming feature that God has given us through medical science. Don't be a Pharisee of stupidity when it comes to your health. Be an apostle of common sense. I became an apostle of common sense when I realized that I could not do this alone. I may not have all the money in the world, but I chose to fly everywhere that was possible to find the best urologist. And when you're diagnosed with prostate cancer, one of the advices that I got was, you don't just settle on one doctor. You visit multiple doctors. So in my case, I had to fly to New York and to Florida to see different doctors to decide on which of those doctors that were to give me the best options that are available. And Dr. Elu the number of the options available. The option I chose was to do the robotic procedure where they remove your prostate. Prostate cancer survival rate is high, but we should embrace the need to get to know the signs and symptoms of prostate cancer. As adult men, we need to know the rules of engagement and teach our young men whose day will come the right way about the warning signs. When you feel that pain at the time of your joy or have difficulty in passing urine, please don't hide the symptoms from your loved ones, because these symptoms can be non-cancerous, but it's important to follow up with your doctor to find out what are the causes. As with cancer of the prostate, some people show no signs of symptoms, and the dreaded diagnosis can only be seen by a biopsy. When I felt my symptoms, I spoke to my wife, I told her exactly how I was feeling, what was happening, and I called everybody I knew within the circle that understand health, because I needed to get. So I called the herbalists, I called all the doctors that I know, so we can understand where I'm at. The biopsy that I did is the one I was discussing with the doctor earlier on, is the probe. When the doctor goes in, looks at the prostate, and takes about 14 to 15 pieces of their prostate to put in jars to send to be tested. That, for me, was a significant moment. So follow up with your doctor, because some of us may carry a cancer gene, as Dr. was saying, through your family history. My father died of cancer of the back of the throat. My mother died of lung cancer. So I had to move, because we carry the gene in our family. And obviously my risk was higher and my age. I would like to recommend that the Ministry of Health and Government continue to invest in the prevention, early detection, and treatment, and by so doing improve our rates of survival in Dominica. We live in a land of a lot of grain, which is our Dominican honey. I encourage people now. So even if I am in the pharmacy business, I also look at how we can use the herbs that we have as part of the whole nutritional value of what is needed for our lives. So I engage in a number of other things, whether it's a pawpaw. I use a lot of the pawpaw seeds. I keep using that. I use a lot of dandelion. I make my juices natural as much as possible. I walk 7-8 miles. I try to eat the best way I can. And course, I keep my mind occupied on the things that will keep me positive. Do not be afraid of the blood tests. Do not be afraid of the practical way of checking for the enlarged prostate, which is the anal exam. I do not know why men are afraid of an anal exam. It has nothing to do with your sexuality. It's the only way that they can understand what is the size of your prostate and what's happening. And sometimes you may feel uncomfortable, but you have to face the music. Don't be afraid. These are two areas that can improve your chances of survival. From my experience, the exam is much easier to face than the doctor informing you of the disease, which he or she is unable to help you deal with because it has spread. We suffer through this diagnosis because of the poor choices we make with our bodies. And I made some poor choices in my body, especially when I was the young bull. We suffer through this diagnosis because our bodies are just not able to continue, and we willfully become irresponsible, which usually end in our demands. We can stop by manning up because God did not leave us here to suffer. That is why the wisdom of medical science is God's gift to humanity, and we should try to make use of this gift. We have to appreciate the sacrifice of our human existence. We may suffer difficult symptoms like cancer, but remember, pain, suffering, trials, and distress are all part of our human existence. When faced with life-changing events like prostate cancer, I urge you to seek God's help and guidance with prayer and thanksgiving, and in so doing, bring God glory to God in the decisions you make in respect of your health, which you make with your doctors and your family. Cancer for me is not the end of the world. I became and aware my body changes as I grew older. As one who is confident within my own ability, I never allowed this to break me or dictate my life or make me feel less of a man. Sometimes you feel that if you have to, because in my case, I didn't choose other options. I decided that seeing that my cancer was at 7 and 8, I decided that the best thing to do is to remove the prostate. And my doctor did the robotic procedure, removed the prostate. And presently, the prostate is not available, but then there are drugs that we use that will help regenerate your nerves, like Cialis or Viagra, which can be used if you need to. The issue that I face is when they did my robotic procedure, in this sort of things that the doctors will explain to you, that sometimes some of the cells drop behind. So I have to deal now with my PSA. After years of not having my PSA being normal, it went up. So then we have been monitoring my PSA to see exactly where it's at. So I keep going back and forth. It is now going back down. Now, we have done what they call a PET scan in the United States. PET scan is a new sort of X-ray that can see everything. They inject you if some die, and then they see your entire body from your head down to your toe. If there's anything there, they will see it. That is very expensive, and you have to have insurance for that. Very, very expensive. So they saw my prostate, they saw the area, there's nothing they're showing, but the doctors will want to do radiation, which is another cost. So if you do not take the precautions now, you may not be as fortunate as somebody like myself to be able to have the ability to go forward with your treatment. I advise you to make your bodies available, make your life available for getting the early detection that really you need. So with the support of my loving spouse, my wife who is my everything, because she has been the person, even when I felt like I needed that boost, because you go through that experience, it's not easy. I remember when we were in Barbados, and I looked at my wife, and one of the ways that I was able to calm myself was to play King Absinet's gospel album. And in playing King Absinet's gospel album, I was able to think of so many different things. And even when I was in tears, my heart was filled up because I'm looking at my wife and I'm seeing that I do not think I want this to take me away from my life and my wife now. And I had to get the courage, and she gave me that courage and drive, because sometimes and you'll be amazed the amount of things you have to get done when you're diagnosed. You have to go and get this bone test. You have to go and do, there's a lot happening. And if your family is not with you, you get lost in the translation. Get tested early. So I have a dedicated health team that is here and in the US. I've been listening and hearing, speaking to people who themselves are battling the disease. I found encouraging support from a number of persons that have been involved in trying to get themselves better in terms of being diagnosed with the condition. Do not be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. The blood test. Do not be afraid of it. I encourage you to, when life faces you this challenging events, don't turn away from getting to know the realities of what is happening with your body. Sometimes we, as Lester was saying, we will say to ourselves that, no, it's not me. That can happen to me. There are some patients, to share a while ago, you will tell them that they are diagnosed with a medical problem, a condition that needs urgent help, and they will say, in the name of Jesus, I rebuke the disease. In the name of Jesus, I rebuke the disease, and they never pass back after 3 years. And then when they do pass back to see doctor, things are much worse, and then the doctors cannot help you. Right? Cancer is not the end of the world. What is needed is for us to become much more understanding of how to battle the disease, and to get the inspiration and the hope that's needed so we could fight. Bishop Fulton Sheen is one of my favorite theological writers. I like to read about him. And so I found myself, as a result of being a cancer survivor, reading a lot more spiritual, nourishing foods, and being able to intellectually put my mind at peace. So I am not concerned about nothing more than that I am living my life knowing that it's all in God's hands, and the doctors have been given an opportunity to take care of the things that they have to take care of on my behalf. And he says something that struck me. Those who think they are healthy but have a hidden moral cancer are incurable. The sick who want to be healed have a chance. Brothers, we have the chance through early detection. We have a chance through wise and prayerful decisions based on the Holy Spirit and on medical science. Get tested. One of the things that I've noticed even in people overseas in clinics is our lack of faith. We still believe I encourage you to get tested and stay strong in Jesus. Cancer may put you in the spotlight's glow now. You may not see the struggles that you face if you do not go and get tested early. And the lessons will be learned, because the struggles are real when it's affecting you and your family. Fight for good health, with wisdom and clarity of mind, so they might live a long and fruitful life. Prostate cancer is a significant health concern worldwide that deserves our attention, because we are the leaders of our households. We are the fathers. We are the builders of the nation. Understand the risks of silence, the dangers of silence, and inaction in the face of a disease, because we want to protect our manhood. Early detection will help the health system see better health results for us men. And the outcomes will be better for not only Dominica, but the world. May God continue to bless us all now and forever. And may every man listen to my voice who has a prostate. Harden not your heart. Go get tested.
Well said. Thank you so much for such a heartfelt deliberation. I felt it. I think that the information you gave was one that was quite applicable and relevant, and for all of us who have listened, particularly who are above the age of 40 and would have maybe have never gotten tested, will now see the significance or the need for having your prostate checked. We will now open the floor for questions. If you have any questions, I saw someone ask online. They were discussing or they were making a statement regarding agricultural products, such as pesticides and so forth, and whether it is a factor for the spike in cancers that we're seeing.
The answer to that question is yes. A lot of the pesticides and also the fertilizers that we use, also the plastic bags and plastic containers that we use, the Tupperware, especially when we microwave our food, we warm the food in the microwave with the Tupperware. Those things leach chemicals into our food. Even the water bottles that we use, when it stays in your car, it stays in somewhere hot and humid, the plastic leaches chemicals into the water. So yes, the question is correct, especially we in the Caribbean, we eat a lot of ground provision, out of tubers, a lot of roots, and we tend to use, I could call malathion, all the chemicals, bromoxone, Roundup, all these chemicals that we use for pests, and also the fertilizers, they tend to enter into the food and we ingest these things, and these chemicals, they build up in our bodies, and they are, they call them hormone, they mimic the hormones, they have the chemical composition, when they mimic the hormones and they fool the body thinks that they are chemicals, and they cause proliferation of the prostate, they cause prostate and cause prostate cancer. Okay? These things are linked. There's a study, you can actually look it up, with Martinique. Martinique has banned all of these fertilizers from the early 90s and 80s. They do not use these things. I guess, well, I was speaking to someone from there and they said that their soil is basically contaminated with those things. That's why they banned it. So they have, just like us, they have a very high incidence of prostate cancer. And some researchers linked those chemicals that they spray bananas with to the high incidence of prostate cancer. You can actually type on Google Martinique and prostate cancer. Also, you can type fertilizers or pesticides, and the studies will come up. Okay? I think in Dominica we can also do the same. So the person is correct. There is a link.
Father?
Thank you, all the panelists, for your presentations. My question is directed to you, Dr. Jacob. I wish you would expand a little more on the treatment for prostate cancer. I want to thank all of you for emphasizing the importance of early detection. And I ask that because I was diagnosed with prostate cancer and myself, and I chose to do brachytherapy. My eldest brother, Stevenson, was also diagnosed. He did hormone treatments. My second brother also diagnosed. He did a radical prostatectomy. And at the moment, I have 3 nephews who have already been diagnosed with prostate cancer. And they're all survivors. So if you could expand more on terms of the treatment. The other thing I want to ask also is that I thank God that I have insurance, hence the expense of it. And to share that as well, because it's one thing to say that, yes, you detect it early, you have it, and you can get treatment, but can you afford it? And is there anything in place for those who will not be able to afford it? I know that years ago we had our own Bishop Bogart who was diagnosed with cancer, and he established a fund for those who would be able to access that fund so that they could be treated. So if you could speak a little more about that, I think that'd be that information would be important for us, for all the entire public, to know that not only is it the early detection is important, but then when I'm diagnosed, how do I go about getting treatment?
Very good question, and Father, someone was asking the same question online in terms of financing. You know, you've gotten that, yes, one person could have the access to insurance and so on, but what if you don't have? What are the options that are available?
So that's quite a long question, but it's a very good question. Yes, treatment options for prostate cancer. So, okay, so you're diagnosed with prostate cancer. The only diagnosis that stands, that's a legal diagnosis, is a positive biopsy. Okay, so there's no PET scan, no CT scan, no ultrasound, no scan can really legally say you have cancer. To say you have cancer, you have to have a biopsy. Okay, nobody can look at the ultrasound and say, I think it's cancer. You have to have a biopsy. And most times in the biopsy, okay, just to recap, the biopsy is we take a piece of the tissue from that organ we study. So there must be a piece of that tissue that is sent to the lab, a piece of that organ taken, sent to the lab to study. When I say study, I mean it is looked at under the microscope. So you have a little slice of the tip of the organ that is sent to a lab, and this slice is examined under a microscope. So under the microscope, it is stained, it is prepared. So it is stained, it is prepared. Sometimes it's stained twice or 3 times. Stained means it is dyed added. Okay, it is cut, stained thin, very thin, and then it is placed under a microscope, right? High resolution microscope. Now, what the pathologists look for is they have a bank. They have an image bank where they compare that image, which is the slice of your organ, in this case prostate, and they compare it to the bank where they have many images, right? So you have for example, you have pre-cancerous lesions. They look at pre-cancerous lesions, they compare them. They say, no. They look at stage 1 prostate cancer, they compare the bank, they compare. Stage 2 prostate cancer, they compare. So all the images they compare. Now, cancer is, I would say in the layman terms, the vici-vi, in the Creole, vici-vi growing of the cells. It is very abnormal, there's no order. So you have a tall cell, a small cell, another big one, a fat one, a slim one there. It's not like for the police officers or the scouts, which I'm sure it's to the, it has an order in it. Understand? So generally if you have cells of an organ, there's an order, there's a different order. But with cancer, there is no order in the group of the cells. So you have the growing disorderly. So the amount of disorder you have is the staging or the level or the stage you are. So if you have very high disorder growth, you have maybe stage 4 or 5. If you have a little disorder, you have maybe stage 1. If you have an intermediate disorder, you have stage 2 or 3. So that's how they grade a cancer. So the biopsy will give you an idea of how the slide is seen under the microscope. The biopsy can also give you an idea if around the prostate, because remember it's a pre, they get little pieces of nerve cells or tissue in the capsule of the prostate. The capsule is like the outer part of the prostate. So then when you see you have capsule infiltration, you know that it's already on the outer edge of the prostate. So with the prostate is an organ, it's not circular, but it's oval shaped, like a small line, but then you have lobes in the inside of it. Okay? So you have stage 1 prostate cancer, where it is in one lobe, right? The lesion in one lobe. You have stage 2, where it is in one or other lobes. And you have stage 3, it is on the capsule, which is the outer edge. So let's think of a grapefruit, where you have stage 1, where the cancer is in one peg of the grapefruit. Stage 2, where it is in 2 or more pegs. Okay? Stage 3, it is already on the skin, what you peel in when you peel the grapefruit. And stage 4, it is out of the skin. It is the most common places it goes is the lymph nodes. The lymph, you have the glands there, the lymph nodes, and then it goes to the bone. It latches onto the bone, and the closest bones are the pelvic bones. That's why you get waist pain and back pain and lower back pain. So that's the easiest way of describing the stages. Now, depending on the stages you have different treatment options. So you must understand the stages before you get to the treatment options. So stage 1, okay, before we go to stage 1, there is a stage called precancerous lesion. A precancerous lesion, or PIN they call it, is you have some inflammation there, but then it's not, when you compare it to the image bank, it's not cancer yet. So some men, they would say they get a precancerous lesion, but it's close to cancer, but it's not there yet. So you might have to repeat the biopsy in a year or 2. So you have that. You have the precancerous lesion. Then you have stage 1. You have it in one lobe of the prostate. Okay? In stage 1, generally, you can do radical prostatectomy, what my friend here did, what he did the robotic way. So the radical prostatectomy is just to remove the prostate completely. Okay? Now stage 2, where it is in 2 or 3 lobes, most likely what you do is the brachytherapy, which you mentioned. Brachytherapy is basically radiation therapy. Now, radiation therapy is either generalized radiation or localized radiation. What you did, I think, was the localized radiation, where they have radioactive seeds being implanted into the prostate. Okay? Now, they have radioactive seeds implanted into the prostate exactly where the lesion is, with guided by ultrasound, high intensity ultrasound. Okay, so that is what the father did. He did localized radiation with radioactive seeds. He did like small grains of rice being implanted. Okay, stage 3, basically palliative care. Palliative care meaning we're going to use hormonal therapy, where you give tablets or injections to decrease the production of testosterone and help prolong the person's life. So then after stage 2, anything after stage 2 is basically nothing can be done really. What you do, you just prolong your life, even palliative care. So that is why early detection is important. Because after stage 2, that is in 1 or 2 lobes, 1 or 2 pegs of the grapefruit already. That means it's very difficult to control. Alright, stage 1, it is in 1 peg. Right, stage 2, 1 or 2 pegs. Stage 3, it is on the edge, on the skin. Stage 4, it is already past the skin going. Stage 5 is in multiple organs. Stage 5, like the brain, the lung, the bone, it's already in multiple organs. Okay, so in Dominica, I offer treatment, palliative care treatment. I generally meet patients who are in stage 3 or 4 already. Most times you meet the patient with a PSA of 500, a PSA of 200, a PSA of 150. I've seen PSA of 1,000. Once the PSA is over 100, it's already spread to another organ. It's already stage 3 or 4. There's no doubt about it. A PSA of more than 100 is already spread. More than stage 3. So there you go to give palliative care. In palliative care, you give hormonal treatment. These hormones will bring down the testosterone and starve the prostate cancer as much as possible. Okay, because the cancer eats testosterone. So you have to bring down the testosterone so you can prolong the person's life. So from stage 3 going down is palliative care, prolonging life. Okay? The treatment in Dominica, I was just speaking to Mr. Coffey. I generally use bicalutamide and androcorp. I use them both. And the cost is about $300 and something for a monthly. And I was just speaking to him about if we can maybe do something to bring down the cost, because sometimes patients cannot even afford that. The other treatments are in the hundreds of thousands. Okay? So, I'm talking about US dollars, So, it's expensive. Robotic therapy, you have to have insurance about it. Okay? Robotic, radical prostatectomy, the robotic one, is quite expensive. The radical prostatectomy, if you go to a surgeon or urologist in the Caribbean, maybe you can get it done for 80,000-90,000 EC if you have a good relationship. But if it's in the US, it's hundreds of thousands. Okay? So treatment is quite expensive. You have to have insurance for treatment. The cheapest treatment we have here in Dominica should be about 300 and something, let's say 400 a month.
With Zoladex,
Zoladex, yes. Zoladex.
It's about 1,500.
Yeah, so then I mix up the Zoladex also. But for the patients, a lot of them cannot even afford the Zoladex.
Yeah.
Zoladex is an injection that you do subcutaneously. It works on the brain to bring down the testosterone. So I would mix it up. So I'll give them every 3 months the Zoladex, in between enzalutamide with the andropol. And that helps a lot because it it prolongs the life just enough, maybe I would say 5 to 7 years, which is a lot. Okay, but from that, there's nothing more we can do down here. You have to go overseas. Okay?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I wanted, because we're getting some comments online as well, I want to acknowledge the viewers. We have Dr. Adrian from Antigua, who is also a consultant urologist with us. And I just want to kind of give Dr. Jacob some help with his voice. Dr. Adrian, you're practicing in Antigua. If you could let us know a little as to what you're seeing in Antigua. But I wanted to focus a little on nutrition. There have been a lot of talks about red meats and dairy products attributed to as a risk factor for prostate cancer. And also to men who have a lot of sex, there are some documentations that are saying that it reduces the chances to prostate cancer. Is that a fact? Is that a myth? So these are the two areas that I wanted to focus on.
Thank you for those questions. Good job, guys. I've been listening. You guys have stimulated so many questions. I wish I could talk to you guys all night about this. I was bursting over there. I have a lot of experience with prostate cancer in Antigua, Barbuda. I'm here in Dominica, Montserrat, Jamaica, the UK, Africa, and this thing is very bad. It is killing black men. We don't know why, but we are all at risk. I saw on the brochure you printed, you said 1 in 9 men will get prostate cancer. These are actually white men's data. 1 in 6 of us will get prostate cancer. So I was counting the number of men in here, and I was going to say that at least 2 of us in here will get prostate cancer. And they've already raised their hands and told us the story already. That is how serious it is. Now, we don't know why. Unfortunately, there is nothing that we can do to prevent this. We're in a state where the best we have is early detection that you've been harping on. Compared to the experience in Antigua, I do both public and private practice, and I realize you're speaking a lot about the men having the problems and not going to the doctor. So they're having the pain, they're struggling to pee, and they're fighting it. That is very unfortunate for you, because most prostate cancer is around when you have absolutely no symptoms. I'm sure you can imagine that's when you want to be diagnosed. If you have to get prostate cancer, if you cannot prevent it, you want to get checked. Now, in my practice, the emphasis is on early detection, wellness. And when I came back, it was all about prostate, prostate, prostate. But then all the men were coming in sick with hypertension, diabetes, stroke, and every problem. So I can't even fix your prostate if you're not well. So the emphasis has now shifted to wellness checks. Don't wait until you're feeling something. Once a year, around the time of your birthday, you go and get checked. Okay? That is how you pick up things before you feel unwell. I'd like to tell the men, how many times a year you service in Canada? 2, 3, 4 times a year. So can't you even go and service your body once for the year? And that kind of gets them thinking. And then we have to change the culture to get men to be aware of their health, aware of their bodies, and to take care of themselves. If we are waiting until we're forcing them to come in when they are sick, it is too late. Now, I had questions for each one of you, and I'd like to find out also about the biopsy issue, because I suspect the figures you quoted are very, very, very underreported. And that is the situation right across the region. I'm sure it is very difficult to get a biopsy in Dominica. And if that is the case, legally, you guys will not document that this man has prostate cancer. So I'm sure in your practice, you have lots of men walking on PSAs of 200, 300, 500, and do not get a biopsy, so they do not go to the ministry's count. And it's the same problem we face. The basics. There's lots happening with prostate cancer, fancy treatment, robotics, genetics, but we can't even do a biopsy. We're in the same boat. But you wanted to find out about nutrition.
Yes.
So there's a lot in the world of nutrition, and we're at the stage where we're all about evidence-based medicine. And lots of people have different opinions. Now, from an evidence-based standpoint, there is information suggesting that processed foods, the red meats, the fatty foods are bad for us in terms of all cancers, and the natural things, the plant-based diets, the fruits, vegetables, are better for us. The irony is, I'm sure if I asked you that, you can tell me that answer. You know what is good for you. Most people know what is healthy for them, but is it easy to get? Is it accessible? Everybody is busy. No one is going to cook for themselves. They're going to go and buy food at the shop. They're going to buy fast food. And unfortunately, the unhealthy food is cheaper. But these are the things that we have to do, both for the men and for the women, to keep us healthy. You also mentioned, you asked about the issue with sex. Now, it comes up a lot. Once upon a time, they used to say that if you do not have sex, you'll get prostate cancer. But very recently, a study came out and it said that if you have sex, or if you ejaculate more than 21 times per month, it reduces your risk of prostate cancer significantly. So that got a lot of the men excited. Then they all went to their woman and said, if I have sex, if you give me more sex, I won't get prostate cancer. That's what the data shows. It didn't say just sex, though, it's ejaculation. So if you choose to masturbate, it should lower your risk. But that is what the evidence shows. Obviously, we'd like to see more data to confirm this, but as scientists, we're scientists, we use evidence to guide our patients. Can I ask Ken a little bit more about how easy it is to get biopsies here in Dominica, and what techniques you have and what is it like?
Okay, in Dominica, it's a difficult medical biopsy. First of all, when you go the public route, which is the hospital, there's a long waiting list, right? And the waiting list is because of lack of staff. There is one Chinese urologist there who is basically overwhelmed. And then if you want to go to the private route, I do biopsies. It also there's a lab called Medicus who does biopsies. They are basically a radiologist who does it. Okay, but it's private, you have to pay. So those who have the funds can get it done relatively quickly, within a week. But those who do not have the funds to go the private route will have to maybe wait a year to a year and a half in the waiting line to get the biopsy done. Okay? That's how difficult.
Do you have any cancer registry here in Dominica to document the number of cancers you have?
There should be something. We do have an oncology department. So that means if you want to access get it through the public health system, and you want to go to the oncology department, you should have some information. In fact, when I just came up with studies, there was this oncologist from India who was doing quite a bit of some really good work. I mean, he was the one who kind of opened the
think Dr. Malaka is an Antigua now. I'm sure Dr. Malaka was Professor Ross.
You're supposed to be from Dominica.
One second, yes, as an oncologist. There was also some information about, someone was saying that there are a few cases where people develop prostate cancer before the age of 40. Yes, so that was a comment. So yes.
So unfortunately, patients don't read the textbook and anything is possible. Now, from everything in healthcare is a risk-based assessment, a risk. Now, generally they say if you're a white man or have no family history, you start checking at age 50. But black men, all of us, or if you have a family member, a father, a brother, an uncle, or if you have women in your family with breast cancer, it increases your risk. And we actually start checking at age 40. That's what most of the guidelines, particularly for black men, recommend, and even regional guidelines recommend age 40. No, it's not impossible to get cancer at 39, but it is extremely rare. We don't tell all men at 30, 35 to go and get screening. We have to determine when to start. Now, statistically, 40 is the age that I use in my practice and most of the regional urologists use. Unfortunately, too many men are coming in at 60, 70, and these are the guys that are coming in the PSAs of the 200s, the 300s. What we're trying to push, what we're trying to advocate for is young men at 40, 41, come, you get your PSA checked. Don't only do the PSA, but you do the blood pressure, you do the cholesterol, you do the diet with the sugar test, because you want healthy men to keep society going. Unfortunately, I find our society has a lot more sympathy for the woman. I'm sure if this was a breast cancer forum, I'm assuming this room will be filled, there probably will be standing room only. If it was a pediatric situation, this room would be filled. If you ask for a donation for the woman, for the kids, money is flowing. Once you start talking to men, talking about men, they're not taking care of themselves, men don't care about themselves, they're not interested, they live their life. When really and truly, your 60s is the most productive years of your life. You have lived, you have experienced, you have contributed. This is when you need to be living, and society just has not caught up to that. So the focus personally is to shift to the younger guys, get the younger guys to be looking after themselves so they can live longer and fulfilling lives.
Another question that's coming up is certain occupations, does that increase your risk? I know there have been some documentations related to cycling and prostate cancer. Yes, cycling and prostate cancer. People who do driving, like truck drivers who drive for extended periods of time. Does that, certain occupations, does that increase, are there certain occupations that may increase your risk to prostate cancer?
All right, that's a good question. For prostate cancer specifically, no. There was a period in time where it was thought that cyclists had an increased risk of prostate cancer. It was spoken about in the media, that has been debunked. Drivers, that used to be spoken about in the media, that has been debunked. That does not increase the risk of prostate cancer. But your occupation as a man can increase the risk of certain cancers, particularly what we see is bladder cancers. So people that work in pesticides, people that handle a lot of chemicals, dyes, and that sort of thing, increase the risk of bladder cancer. From an occupation standpoint, hairdressers, if you're dealing with clothing dyes, hair dyes, that increases the risk of bladder cancer, which is very close to the prostate, and it can increase the risk of kidney cancers. But if we're still talking about prostate cancer here tonight, nothing occupation-wise increases your risk. Genes, being a man, unfortunately being black, right? Risk family, these are the things. Other things like diet and so forth, lifestyle a little lower down, but those are the main things.
might be a little sensitive, but transgender. So if somebody is transgender, a man changes his identity, would he still be considered at risk to prostate cancer? Any of the doctors?
It's a very good question. So, the whole transgender movement has brought about quite a lot in terms of prostate cancer, a lot to think about. Now, it depends on what kind of transgender, what procedure they had done, and what are they from a man to a woman, etc. So if it's a trans woman to a man, so the person is genetically female, they will not get prostate cancer. Okay? They do not have a prostate, their genes, their chromosomes are XX. They have never had a prostate, they don't have the makeup to have a prostate or prostate cancer. They will not grow a prostate later in life. Where the problem arises is the men that transition to females. They can do everything externally to look like a female, but they still have a prostate inside. They can get prostate cancer. Now, if the clinician is not aware of that, or they do not exist in a society where they are open about that, or they move to somewhere as a woman and are treated as a woman and do not do their PSA checks, they can get prostate cancer. No, depending on what surgery they did, they may have had some of the internal organs removed, including the prostate. And these are all very important things to know to assess prostate cancer risk in a transgender patient.
Okay, so we have a question here.
This question is for Dr. Jacobs and possibly Dr. Rodney, if you have something to contribute. Dr. Jacobs, you mentioned in your presentation that there is something called a precancer lesion, right? That may be a precursor to cancer. Now my question is a lesion definitely an indicator, that one is going to get cancer? And secondly, if this is the case, then is it not possible to do something about it at that stage?
Okay, so yes, a precancerous lesion, that is said, or this is given by the pathologist, who is the person who really looks at the sample under the microscope. I would describe a precancerous lesion to my patients as a lesion that is very similar or very suspicious, but is not quite yet able to be defined. So you have to do some watchful waiting, or just observe it by continue doing your PSAs, and maybe in 1 year, 6 months to 1 year, repeat the biopsy. So the lesion is something very suspicious. It's a lesion that is suspicious that the pathologists cannot really put their finger on it yet. They cannot definitely say it is a stage 1 or stage whatever, Gleason score, whatever. It is just something they have to keep. You have to keep monitoring. Okay? As to what you can do to prevent it or reverse it, not much. You should have to, they call it watchful waiting, observing and repeating the PSA over time, and see if the PSA rises or it stays the same. And within 6 months to a year, repeat the biopsy. Nothing much you can do, you just have to observe it. I don't know if the doctor wants to say something else.
So I agree with that. You see, in life, unfortunately, it's not always black and white. You sometimes have a gray area. And that's what these precancerous lesions are. Now, when you get a result saying precancerous, remember when you did a biopsy, we took 12 samples of the entire prostate. So does that mean you missed the cancer? And that is one of the considerations. So the concern is you have this precancerous lesion, and when they've looked at some of them, what they have found is that sometimes this precancerous lesion sits right beside the cancerous lesion and you've missed it. So what they've found is, depending on which of the precancerous lesions, they've found that if you rebiopsy them again,
in a year, you then pick up the lesion, you pick up the cancer, and then some of them you rebiopsy in a year and there's no cancer. And then they have ratios or percentages. So we generally use that to then say, look, it's not worth me treating you for cancer yet, but let us see what happens in a year. And then we opt to rebiopsy in a year to say, yes, there is cancer, let's move forward. But the worst thing you can do as a patient is stop checking. Because I've had patients that have gotten this inconclusive precancerous lesion and have disappeared. And then they come back in 3 years later with a PSA of 100. That is heartbreaking.
Let me add to that. So generally, when I get a suspicious lesion or precancerous lesion, I would say the same thing, wait, but then I would also add if they can get an MRI done. So generally, the MRI is magnetic resonance imaging, which sees a very, I would say, the smallest images, okay, the smallest lesions, up to maybe 1 millimeter thick. So in that case, if there is something growing or something coming out or something just hiding under the area, so acutely, then it will pick it up. So the MRI would pick up very small lesions up to 1 millimeter wide or thick. So if you have something there, it will pick it up, most likely. So if you have a precancerous lesion, I would recommend an MRI within 6 months of the prostate. That will help. So because most patients are afraid to do another biopsy because it's uncomfortable, it's a little painful. So I would just say, try to get an MRI done, and if anything is there, the MRI will see it. Okay? With that kind of thing.
But an MRI does not replace a biopsy, right?
No, it doesn't. But then it gives a better idea if something is lurking in the background. Understand? Yeah.
So we are just about out of time, and I must say that it was indeed we have yes. Oh, you have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. You were saying that 1 of 6, and in this room that you expect 1 of 6, but I'm a third. So, yeah, I was diagnosed with prostate 2 years ago, and like Father John Reese, I had brachy in Barbados. The question that I would like to ask, though, is directed at Leicester. We heard from the minister, we heard it from you, and to some extent from Dr. Robin, that men generally see it as a weakness to come forward for support, medical or psychosocial, even, less so. I mean, even this evening, when we see the numbers here, we could do better than that. My question to you is, based on your experience working with, HIV patients and others, what more can we do to get men to come forward and to talk about what's happening to them?
Very good question.
Wow. I know that has been one of the discussions that have been had so many times in their forums, and I will tell you, it's a mindset change you have to work on, and see how I've tried to approach it. Recently, we were trying to do a toolkit for teachers through primary and secondary school to deal with stigma and discrimination. So it means that the whole discussion of sexuality, stigma and discrimination, health would have been introduced to the children as early as possible. One of the struggles that we have, one of the challenges that we have in the Caribbean setting, and I keep saying Caribbean setting because I interact with so many of my colleagues around the region, but in the Americas I should say, is that our girls are introduced very early to health. By the time you get a period, you are having discussion of them, pregnancy and the menstrual cycles and so on. Young men are not affording that. We only go to the doctors when we have a problem. So what can be done, Mr. Lita, or for the general public, is to have the introduction of health promotion within your primary school. In fact, you can even start from kindergarten. In your syllabus, you put something that allows
the children to have already been introduced to the topics. So as they get older, you give them more information and they're more acquainted and aware of the information. And that's the only way it's going to change, because we have a mindset already within our culture of men not wanting to go to health providers. But if your boys, when they fall and they bruise their knees, you tell them, don't get up and don't cry. Tell them, no, you need to go to the doctor to make sure it doesn't get infected. That's how we're starting the process. So right now, they don't take for granted that when they get a bruise, that, I'm a boy and I'm supposed to cry, let me just wash it with water and move on. So that's one of the things I think we should do. Make sure within our educational syllabus, introduce young men to the topics of prostate cancer, sexuality, sexual behavior, sexual health. So as they get older, they're already aware of the subject and they feel more comfortable talking about it. That is what we should do. In addition to, when the doctors were talking about, we had this whole thing about telling men that if you ejaculate like 21 times in a month, give them the good message, but give them the educational message into it. Not just ejaculation. Go check yourself. Yes. Then you're giving them a message that is, yes, I want to have more sex, but I know it's not just only sex that's going to prevent me from developing prostate cancer or any prostate issues. It would mean that I have to do other things, which is the same we do for sexual and reproductive health. Yes, I tell you, for example, we use the ABC system in sexual health and sexual protection for STIs. We do push abstinence, A. Be faithful if you have a partner, don't have multiple sexual partners. And then we talk about if you have multiple sexual partners, you start using the condoms, you do a test, you can educate yourself, which brings you down to the C, D, and E. The same thing is to be applied. Give them the basic protection message, and then add other things to it. That will make it a lot easier. And I'm telling you, it broke my heart. I will tell you, it broke my heart when I wanted to have this toolkit developed, that young children would start reaching the subject. So by the time they get to high school and they get to college and university, they'll feel comfortable about talking about those things. That's the only thing that's going to change the mindset of our the men in the Americas. Until we do that, we're going to have the same problem over and over and over.
But I just want to add to that. Sports is one of the areas that is very appealing to boys, young men. And I think in our sports program, that we must get sports psychologists, psychologists working in the area of sports, so that our sportsmen can have those opportunities to talk to these individuals. And this is where we can get them to be a little bit more open about not just health matters, but many other matters that affect them.
Let me answer that for you one time. Excellent. But I'll tell you what though. We've tried that. The men don't show. Men don't show. Recently, together with Carryman, I think, during the same time last year, we had a health talk where we invited teachers, sports organizations, faith-based organizations to come and have a discussion on gender-based violence. Let me tell you, it's only the people who were part of the table and a few scattered men who were there. We have to end up just having a round table discussion. They don't want to come because what you can do, I can suggest, and I've seen it before. I remember there's a program that I did with Carryman that was called Agana, to achieve or to earn. You use sports to teach young men life skills. You can also find a way to develop structured programs or structured projects where young men get the opportunity to do sports and do things with fun, but have educational sessions in it. Even myself, one of the things that would make me so disappointed by is when I just came out from studying St. Mary's Cooperative Credit Union, which I'm part of. We organized that. We sponsored the football team in my village, and outside of football, we'd have had persons come in and have discussion with the young men on health issues, on life issues. And you set it up. You get the person to come, tell the person to pay them, and when they come, the young men don't show. They don't, unfortunately. So you have to find more innovative ways, Mr. Minister, to find those information too. And the only way I think it can work is when you have structured programs that catch the children as soon as they enter into the educational system. That is what will make a difference.
But that's what I'm talking about in terms of the sports psychologists, because I'm talking about sports, because sports is very much integral in the school curriculum. But I'm saying, in addition to the sports, the sports teachers, that you need to bring in those psychologists to work alongside, so that, and I mean, a lot of the tournaments that we have going on, and you have the coaches, you invest in the coaches, but we also need to bring those other skills on the playing field.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Lita, and to our really, really informative panelists. We really want to thank you, Dr. Ken Jacobs, urologist, Mr. Lester Guy, psychologist, Mr. Valentine Coffey, businessman and survivor, and Dr. Adrian, I can't pronounce it, Blood. Okay. Yeah, so that's why I've not been saying it. But we really want to thank you for contributing as well this evening. At this time, I am going to turn the mic to my good friend, I'm saying doctor, we're going to give you an honorary doctorate because you've worked so hard this month, getting the message out there from Granby to St. Joseph to Marigot, all over Dominica. Mr. Don Correa.
Thank you, Mr. Lando. There's not much to say again, but to recognize the panelists and to say how much we appreciate the sharing of your experience, your expertise, and your life stories surrounding the topic, Okay, so let me thank, first of all, the Minister for addressing us here tonight, and to outline the policies of the ministry. We at the Cancer Society, we work very closely with the Ministry of Health. In fact, this month is Caribbean Health Wellness Awareness Month, and therefore we had collaborative efforts in Granby, as Carlty said, Granby, St. Joseph, Margaret, and other institutions like prisons and stuff like that. So we want to thank your ministry through you, and we want to continue working with you. My good, let me see how I'll say, my mentor, my pastor, my guide, my former teacher. I want to say thank you for your opening prayer in all things, and not pastor, but reverend, or how you call yourself? Anyway,
Deacon to be.
Yes, has said it all, that we must put God in all things we do, give God the glory at all times. Part of the reason why you're not hearing from me, my phone doesn't work, I cannot send WhatsApp messages, so I'll get you, thank you. But yes, the inspiration part of it is very critical, and we want to thank Father for reminding us of that. Dr. Ken Jacob is becoming an integral part of our promotion and our advocacy and our awareness programs. When we call on him, whether it's a talk show, whether it's a public meeting, community hall meeting, he's always willing and ready to participate. So we want to thank you, Dr. Ken Jacob. Val Coffey is my friend, my neighbor. We go a long way, and his story is inspiring. I think we need to rope you in and take you on board so that you can do some more testimonies with the Cancer Society, especially Get Men. So we want to thank you, Mr. Coffey, Reverend Coffey, Deacon Coffey, Young Bull. Yes. Lester Guy, interesting. I'm really impressed. Very, very impressed with Lester's presentation, and it's a pity we don't have the kind of crowd that we anticipated. I thought more men would have come out, but I'm sure they're listening through the social media platforms and via Kyrie live streaming. So I really want to thank Lester for that presentation. And then we had a surprise panelist from Mr. Lando, Dr. Adrian. Very inspiring, your experience and bringing back. We thought we had a problem with Dominica. Apparently, it is in the Caribbean. It's in the USCS, it's in the Americas, as Lester pointed out. So we really want to thank you for your intervention and your contribution. All right? And probably we should get your contacts. So we at the Dominica Cancer Society can raise with you and see how we can best collaborate when we have programs. September is quickly coming to an end, but I think programs like that, Mr. Lita, we need to continue them, bring them out of Roseau, bring them to the communities with panelists and expertise like we have on the table right now. To the media, I want to say a special thank you. Kyrie has been on board. First of all, Kyrie is a member of the Dominica Cancer Society. Steve Vidal is a member. But I also want to thank Diego and Loftus and Williams. No, Civic Vibes. Yeah. So I want to thank you all for helping us to bring the message across to the virtual audience. I'm sure we have a lot of followers virtually. And also we want to thank you for tuning in to our program this evening. Our next big activity will be the Cancer Walk, which comes up on October 6th. And we will be starting from one point in the Roseau area, that is, we're going to be starting from Kingsfield, from the Roman Catholic Church, we end with the bank with Kingsfield on October 6th at 4 p.m. and we're going to walk towards the forecourt in the stadium, culminating in the stadium, where we'll have some addresses, some entertainment, and some testimonials. So we're hoping that the general public will participate, will patronize us. We'll have sheets available for contributions as we do our walk. Also, simultaneously, we're going to have a walk from in the north, that is Portsmouth, from Purple Turtle to Benjamin's Park, beginning at the same time. So that's a simultaneous walk. And we're asking for the general support. Our t-shirts have arrived and they will be available, let me see, by Friday, not Friday, Monday for sure. Because when we receive the t-shirts, we have to sort them out by sizes and by orders and stuff like that. So let's say by Monday, we'll have our t-shirts readily available for the walk. So please purchase your t-shirts in bulk. And also, please donate. Where's my cash? Now, I want to really thank the Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Carlton Land, Head of June, one before the last, for doing an excellent job. His time management, as usual, is on point. We decided to end that before 9, and we're well into that timetable, right? So I want to really thank you. Mr. Lando is no stranger to public awareness and public health awareness forum, so I give him his kudos being an expert in that field. And also coordinator, main support group. He has been working hard, that is Mr. Davis Litter, so we really want to thank him also for bringing our prostate month to a success. Don't mind the turnout is low, but I'm sure persons are following online, and with the help of the media, we'll get more exposure during the week. I'm appealing to Mr. Duran Diano. Steve is already planning to repeat it, so I have more to. And Loftus also. So I'm sure we're going to get some media coverage as the week goes along. And as I said, we're going to be having to plan beyond September
to do more of that kind of programming so that we can get the message across. I also want to thank UE for coming on board with us again. UE is one of our partners, and I really want to thank Dr. Joseph for allowing us the facility to have this program here tonight. And the caterer, we have some soup available, so when we end this discussion, we'll have some refreshments outside that we can partake in. And finally, I want to thank the President of the Dominica Cancer Society, the Board of Directors, our volunteers, our support group, for keeping the fire ablaze. You know, it's not easy, but we want, all of us are volunteers, we're not getting paid, and so we could have been using our time to do something else, but we are here honestly, and so we want to thank all our volunteers. And final, I want to thank God for allowing us this opportunity, this opportunity for us to gather here and share the information. To God be the glory all the time, every time. I want to pass back on to Mr. Coordinator, Mr. Rita, for presentation of some fruit baskets to our panelists. So, Mr. Rita will be honored. Yeah, the challenge is going to try to attract many of those calling, and we have to transfer. So the first one goes to Mr. Lando. Please. Right here. So Mr. Lando, on behalf of the Cancer Society, please accept our token of appreciation. Watch me. Thank you very much. Let's say later. So the second one was the first. Thank you so much for your contribution and your Mr. Val Coffee before you go. Yours is available. We'll have to get a special token for Dr. Adrian because it's okay. When are you leaving? On Sunday. We will organize to get you a special souvenir or something. You know? So Dr. Jacob.
I will be free to
Thank you so very much. So before we end, a reminder that our t-shirts are going to be available by Monday. And also our caps. You see I am wearing a cap, right? Attitude is love. Is everything? You say leadership is everything, but if you have the wrong attitude, leadership doesn't matter. So get your caps, $30 for one, and the shirts are $40. Check our office for more information. So again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in and being part of this panel discussion. I want to wish you well. Travel mercies as you make your way back home. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Don, for thanking us. And as Don indicated, we have some soup, some refreshment for you. So please take something before you leave. Thank you, and have a good night.
Excuse me, guys.